The newspaper, Arj Singh and Eleanor Langford, have written a piece about Rishi Sunak's decision to put forward emergency legislation and effectively to say that something which has been ruled by the Supreme Court in our country as unsafe can be defined by law as safe. And they suggest that the Prime Minister is simply playing a game of chess with Suella Braverman and her cronies, who he fears. Rory Stewart says, in fact, she didn't bring that many votes to Rishi's side. He thinks it was about 7, which really isn't significant, certainly not significant enough for him to sell his soul to such a Mephistophelian creature of hell. But sold his soul he definitely has. And I don't think it really matters whether Singh and Langford are correct, that this is all for show and that no planes will take off before the next general election, and that this is all an alternative to leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, the European Court. He says that he's going to introduce emergency laws to stop the systemic challenges in the domestic courts and that he will not allow a foreign court to block his flights. And the former Justice Secretary apparently said that the legislation would still be challenged, so it's now an operational question for the government rather than one of law. There will inevitably be a court challenge, he said, while suggesting that Sunak should now reconfigure his asylum policy away from the Rwanda plan. This is the risk of elevating Rwanda to being the be-all and end-all of immigration policy, and this has now come home to roost. In that, of course, he's quite right. Natalie Elphicke, the MP for Dover, has said that the policy is effectively at an end. No planes will be leaving, and we need now to move forward. She's right. The way to move forward is to tackle the 1951 Refugee Convention at source and with an international body, and to be the grand theatre for that debate, because Britain is not the only country which is facing a migration crisis. Most of Europe is facing it. Greece has been facing it for 20 years and struggling. Italy is struggling. Germany is trying to outsource its responsibility, as we are. Denmark struggling. Sweden struggling. France struggling. And of course, Turkey struggling enormously. So these major countries, I think, would welcome a redefinition of the 1951 Refugee Convention, or would have some substance to add to a serious debate on this, because this is a convention which was devised for a different time, and although it has protections which must be kept, and if anything, enlarged and embellished, it also has it also assumes a mode of transport, a mode of travel which was customary in the 1950s. So it simply wasn't possible to move as effectively as it is now. Now movement is like that, and people can choose where they come to. In the past, at the time when that refugee convention was devised, there was very little choice involved, and that isn't really addressed. This idea of safe countries is, again, a misnomer and is very unclear, and is further confused by the Dublin III protocol, which we rejected when we left Brexit, when we left the European Union through Brexit, because the negotiators who were working for us were too stupid to establish an alternative to Dublin 3. They were too stupid to do that, and they were too stupid to put in proper safeguards for Northern Ireland. That fell to Chris Heaton-Harris to devise and to push forward with years of hard work. Months of hard work. A year. I mean, it's grown into years of hard work. He's still working on it. I think it is certain that Rishi Sunak is going to lose the next election. And what has he done today? Today he's signalled, if he has signalled, as I said, as Eleanor and Arj Singh have said, if he's signalled a sort of mock battle to keep people quiet, it's not enough. He's also signalled something else, and that other thing is the signal that I take to heart, and that means, for me, Rishi Sunak has abandoned a place of honour and can never be taken seriously again. Rishi Sunak today has stated that he is above morality. This is a very interesting question, which comes very close to the Euthyphro debate. Do you do something because, or do the gods tell you to do something because it's good? Or does something become good because the gods tell you to do it? If we redefine this in terms of what Rishi Sunak has done, can Rishi Sunak define something that was bad as good simply by changing the law? Can the law dictate morality? And when you get to that question, and Rishi Sunak thinks it can, that's the point. Rishi Sunak actually, and Boris, they actually think that they can take on morality and change it. Now, the lawyers in the Supreme Court, a lot of their thought is underpinned by morality. Of course, they're looking at legal issues, but they were looking also at whether or not Rwanda was safe based on its past commitments to Israel. And Sunak is saying, well, we'll have a treaty. He's already thrown money at them. What more is a treaty? A treaty is nothing more than an elevated promise. I know he doesn't think promises are very important, and the promise he made to Suella Braverman clearly isn't important. She could write confessions and promises on the loo roll. I would still use it and throw it away. It would be flushed. I wouldn't consider a word from Suella Braverman to be worth the paper it's written on. I'm sure Rishi Sunak takes the same view. But the problem is, once you take that view with law, not with some silly scrap of paper written by somebody who's trying to bribe you and extract a promise from you, once you take that decision with law, you've crossed the line. So yes, he's had practice, and it's dangerous practice. I wouldn't recommend it. But now he's crossed the line. He's crossed the line into immorality. And I don't think there's any way back from that. And it's really sad to say this, but I think he has now moved into a position that I think will be very difficult for him to come out of. There are other people in the world who have crossed that line. Putin, Lukashenko. I think Netanyahu has crossed that line in many ways. And while we might support the country to a certain extent, we can never take that politician seriously again. I think it's terribly, terribly sad. I also can't think, and maybe somebody can tell me. I can't think of any precedent for this. I can't think of anything except possibly Henry VIII changing religion. But I can't think of any situation where the law defines something as X and the person in charge redefines it as Y. Because that's what we're doing. We're redefining something bad as something good. And it doesn't matter whether those flights go ahead or don't go ahead before the next election. Rishi Sunak has signalled his intent to redefine safety. And I'm afraid that makes me feel extremely unsafe, because if he can do it over a Rwanda flight, he can do it over anything. And he now sets a precedent in British legal practice, in political practice, which is going to be really hard to overlook. He has given a recipe for potential anarchy, for potential tyranny, for the dismissing of law, the dismissing of tradition, the dismissing of morality and honour. And I thought that was something that belonged to twits like Suella Braverman and Priti Patel and Nadine Dorries, Matt Hancock, Gavin Williamson. But no, it belongs to the Prime Minister too. He has put that on record today. I could not be more disappointed in him, and I could not be more worried. This is actually worse than the lies that Boris Johnson told. This is so much worse. And proroguing Parliament, lying to the Queen, who cares? Really, it's not good. But at no point did Boris say that bad can be legislated as good. At no point did he do that. He advised Rishi Sunak to do that, which in many ways makes him a partner in this process. But when he was Prime Minister, he didn't do this. This is a slow sliding scale into the idea that politics is about getting what you want, whether you destroy morality or not in the process. And I think this is the first time in modern history that this has happened.